who Morrison-Dixon is. We're in about 10 states, south, southeast. So you may not know us, but we are a wholesaler. And I've helped set up around 80 plus accounts. And so I'm going to be talking to you today about the wholesaler's role in 340B. Let's see if I get this right. How do you rest? I actually have no potential or actual conflict. So isn't that wonderful? My objectives today are to explain the wholesaler's role in 340B and the account setup, so including contract loads, integration of services, and operational issues, as well as talk about our role in the maintaining of a 340B account, including the managing of those contracts, pricing discrepancies, and any kind of credit rebills that you might deal with. This chart is a little bonus chart. I'm giving to you this at no extra charge. I actually stole it from Apexis, so it's a wonderful chart. Lisa talked a lot in her presentation about all the different requirements. You see the disproportionate share percentage there, the 11.75%. This puts it all together in a chart. It tells you whether or not you have the GPO exclusion rule that applies to you, and it also tells you whether or not you have the orphan drug status. If you look over there on the left, it displays all the different types of covered entities, and if you'll notice, each one of those have 3 letters in parentheses. Those letters are going to be in front of your 340B ID when the wholesaler goes out to HRSA website to confirm that you are eligible for 340B pricing and that you're listed at HRSA's website. So we take that into account when we're setting up a new account. If you're one of those bottom 4, the freestanding cancer center on down, and it says yes under orphan drug status applies, we will not load contracts for those orphan drugs. And for those of you who don't know what orphan drugs are, it's just a list of drugs that are used for rare diseases and conditions. They're ineligible for 340B contracts, or they can't be, those bottom 4 entities can't use the 340B contract with those drugs. So the first thing we do in account setup, we go out to that HRSA site and we check the 340B ID. We make sure that you are registered on the site. We then set up an account and we use the same name and the address that's on the HRSA website. And we do this for the chargebacks, which we're going to talk about on the next slide. But it's very important to understand our process so that you understand what we're dealing with on the back end so that you get your 340B contract. And you'll see at the bottom there, any time that you have contract pharmacies or you have parent-child relationships, typically we'll discuss that with the account beforehand, and we look for those as well on the HRSA website. Once we get that 340B ID, we then apply for a HIN number on your behalf. And this HIN number, in our situation, Morrison-Dixon actually applies on the customer's behalf for that HIN number. We want to do that because we want to make sure that, again, the name and address match whatever is referenced by that HIN number matches what's on the HRSA website. So the reason we do that is because of the chargeback process. I'm going to give you an example of the chargeback process and why it's important. What will happen with the wholesalers is we'll buy a drug. Let's say that we pay $100 for a package of a drug. We bring it into our warehouse and it sits there until you buy it. When the covered entity buys it, they'll have a 340B contract for that drug. So they may purchase that drug at $25. If they purchase the drug at $25, if you're a mathematician, you figured out that that's $75 difference that we paid for the drug that we just sold the covered entity for. So what we have to do is we go back to the manufacturer and we say this is a 340B eligible covered entity and we need the difference between that $100 and $25 back. And they will give that to us as long as the addresses and the names match. So that's one thing I know you'll be hearing about later. The last thing I'd like to say about as far as account setup is the Apexis, the prime vendor contracts, as you heard from John. These you're automatically eligible for if you are registered on HRSA's website and you're a 340B eligible entity. You have access to prime vendor contracts. You just have to apply for them. Go on the Apexis website, which is at www.340bpvp.com. I've listed it on there for you. And you just have to fill out the paperwork and make sure that you get access to those contracts. Also, put a little extra note in there, extra paperwork may be required for vaccine contracts, so that's just a little note. Operationally, we also help customers during the operational side of things. If you're looking at a mixed-use setting, what I mean by mixed-use setting, if you're pulling product from an inventory for both inpatient and outpatient product, then you're going to have to either keep separate inventories, which most places don't like to do because of space constraints and so forth, or you're going to have some kind of split bill software. So operationally, most wholesalers have their own split bill software available to you. There's also third-party split bill softwares. Either way, you're going to need your wholesaler to help you set up either their software or the information that needs to flow back and forth from the ordering platform to the split bill software. Also, the Medicaid billing, it's mentioned earlier by Lisa, the Medicaid carve-in, carve-out. If you choose to go the route of carve-out, it's going to require an additional account be set up, and it's going to have to be at WAC pricing. So that's, or prime vendor pricing, as you heard from John. So that's something that you have to take into account and make sure you make your wholesaler aware that you are carving out and you need that additional account. One of the questions that's always asked by newbies, by new folks here, they always ask, how far back can I go to get credits for 340B pricing? And this generally happens when you're eligible, you register on the site, you're eligible as of January 1st, and here it is, January 23rd, and we are not ready operationally. By the way, how many of you out there right now are eligible, registered, but you're not operational yet? Is there any? We have a couple here. How many have just become operational within the last few quarters? So most everyone's been doing the program for a while? Well, what I'd like to say about this is you want to consider, I kind of consider from the manufacturer point of view on this, prices change. If you're trying to go back a year or 2 years and grab back the savings that you lost by not being ready for the operational setup yet, then there's going to be a price discrepancy. Price is much different than it was a year ago when you go back to the manufacturer and you ask for that